Hey, what's up, you guys? WWE fan 0599 here again, and today we're going to review Ben-Hur, the 2016 version. So, Ben-Hur stars Jack Hudson, Toby Kebbell, and Morgan Freeman. And what this film is basically about, it's about when Judith Ben-Hur is accused for a crime he basically did not commit, and now he wants to seek revenge on his brother and prove that he is innocent. So, what did I think of Ben-Hur? Now, I went to Ben-Hur thinking that this was going to be basically a nuclear explosion to movies. I had this as my least anticipated movie of the summer. This thing looked like an abomination against humanity. This thing looked awful, and I was so dreading this movie. And I watched it, so now what do I think of it? It's okay. It's fine. It's okay at best. I will say this, though. It was way better than I expected this thing to be. But at the same time, it's still not a good movie. It's mediocre at best. It's honestly a bland, just lifeless, mediocre remake. It really is. It's just a lifeless movie, honestly. So, yeah. But let's get into my positives. And my positives are, first being the acting. More or less actually just two people in the movie. First being Jack Hudson. Jack Hudson was actually really good in this movie. I thought, honestly, he gave the best performance in the film. He was really good as Judith Ben-Hur. You know, I really enjoyed his character, and I cared for his character. He was really good in the movie. I thought he did a really good job in this film. You know, he was really good in the movie. So, yeah, Jack Hudson, he did a really good job in the film. Same goes with Toby Kebbell. Toby Kebbell was really good in this movie, too. He was very enjoyable as the brother. You know, I really enjoyed him in this movie. You know, he did a great job, too. So, yeah. The war between both of the brothers, I actually really loved that with this movie. This was actually great, in my opinion. It was by far, honestly, the best thing about this movie was this kind of rivalry between the brothers. And I really enjoyed that. That was honestly great. You know, every time they kept on cutting back to that in the movie, it was honestly great, and I was really enjoying that. Some of the writing is really good with the movie. I actually did think some of the writing was really good with the film. More or less, it was just with Jack and Toby's dialogue, more or less. But it still had some really good writing here and there in the film. The directing is really good for the most part in this movie. The directing is really good, in my opinion. I think the movie does have some really good directing. And the pacing is really good at points with the movie. I will say this, up until they got to the 1 hour mark, which I'll get more into a little bit later when I talk about the negatives, it had really good pacing. I thought it moved at a pretty nice and natural pace. So yeah. Now the negatives I have with the movie, because I do have negatives with this film. First being, the rest of the acting is, it's not awful, it's just, everyone seemed like they just didn't want to be there. Like, everyone just gives like a bland, kind of just lifeless, emotionless performance in this movie. Everyone else, like besides Jack Hudson and Toby Kebbell, everyone just feels like they're just lifeless, honestly, and bland. Like Morgan Freeman, listen, I love Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman is one of my favorite actors of all time, but it seemed like he was just like, yeah, I'm just here for the paycheck, honestly. He just gives kind of just a boring, bland, lifeless performance in the film. And that goes with everyone else in this movie. It just felt like everyone just didn't want to be there, honestly. Like I said, everyone just gives like a bland, emotionless performance. So yeah. Next being the action with this movie. The action is really poorly filmed in this movie, honestly. I felt no intensity towards this action whatsoever. It was, you know, very poorly filmed, and just, it felt underwhelming, the action, honestly. Like, with the boat scene, I know everyone talks about with the Charlton Heston one, the boat scene and the chariot race, and both of those really are not that great. Disclaimer, I actually have never seen the Charlton Heston version. This was actually my first time seeing a Ben-Hur movie. So, and just the way they execute both of those scenes, it was very choppy, very just edited very quickly. It just wasn't all that filmed all that well. Usually I don't complain about this with movies, but honestly, with a movie like this, I have to complain about this, and that's the PG-13 violence. It seriously does not work for a movie like this. You know what I mean? It really doesn't. Like, some of the times when you see Toby Kebbell, like, in war and stuff, like, hardly any blood splatters or anything, like, when he's cutting people and stuff, like, it just feels very out of place, and just, it's like, they could have just made this R-rated. Like, the PG-13 violence really does not work in this movie. And I was just like, why? Because for the movie like this, it honestly should be R-rated because, you know, it is very blood-heavy and stuff during, like, times like this and stuff. So, yeah, honestly, the PG-13 violence really did not work with this movie. The writing at times with this film, honestly, wasn't really all that great. It just felt very, I know I keep on saying this, but honestly, it feels very lifeless, very bland. Just every time someone spoke a word of dialogue that wasn't Jack Hudson or Toby Kebbell, just felt like, you know, lifeless and bland, honestly. So, yeah. And some of the directing is really bad with this movie, honestly. There were some times that were, like I said, it's mostly towards the action scenes where the directing is really terrible, honestly, because, like I said, the action scenes are filmed very quick cut and very shaky cam and very, like, quick cut edited, and it just looks terrible, honestly. And the movie, once it hits the 1 hour mark, the movie does get really boring, honestly. That's when the movie really slows down and just becomes really boring. So, yeah. And now the last thing about this movie, the thing the people have been talking about the most about this movie, the ending. Now, of course, no spoilers, none of that. But I will just say this. Everybody's been saying that this has been like one of the worst endings they've ever seen. It ruined the entire movie for them. Here's the thing. To me, this ending was bad. This was not a good ending. It was not a good way to end the film. But I will say it didn't infuriate me as much as other people did. Like, I won't say that this ruined the entire film for me. I won't say that, but it still wasn't a good ending. And I really didn't think they should have ended the movie like that. Like, it really didn't make all that much of sense, especially what you see what happens in the movie. It really doesn't really make any sense, honestly. And just the way they ended the film, it was just like, wait, what? But I will admit, it didn't infuriate me as much as other people. So yeah, there's honestly way worse endings than this. Now, yes, Ben-Hur, not an awful movie, but at the same time, it still wasn't good. Like I said, it was a lot better than I expected it to be, but at the same time, it's still not very good either. So it's time for my official grade on Ben-Hur, and my official grade on Ben-Hur is a C. It's an okay movie at best. Honestly, it's a very forgettable, very just bland movie, honestly. Honestly, you're not going to remember it. In the great words of Jeremy Jahns, you're not going to remember it like in T-minus like 2 days. Like, it's just that forgettable, honestly. It's a very, very forgettable movie. Honestly, it is. So yeah, Ben-Hur, just an okay, forgettable, bland movie. Gets a C. So, what did you guys think of Ben-Hur? Leave in the comment section below. I'm WWE Fan 0599, and we'll see you out later. Peace.